Hi everyone, John from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey. And today we're looking at the outside of a renovated house. So a recently renovated house, or what we would call a flip, basically a home that has been recently renovated for resale. And with these particular homes, you have to be very careful because they're just, they're renovated and changes are made just really to make a profit. So when you guys buy a home like this, a recently renovated home, or what we call a flip house, you really have to have a thorough and complete home inspection. And today we're just going to go over some of the things that we found on the outside of the home. I'm not permitted to film inside the house, but here on the outside we have some interesting things, and I just want to show you those things. So this is our back exterior grade along the foundation wall at the back of the house. And we see how the grade just dips down inside here. So we have low areas along the foundation wall where water is just going to collect. And I know that home inspectors, we harp on this grading issue all the time because the vast majority of homes that we inspect are going to need some attention to the outside grading. But if we look here, this really needs some attention. We want a nice gentle slope away from all the foundation walls. And we did see some water seepage inside the basement. So this may not correct the entire water entry problem in the basement, but it will go a long way at helping mitigate that seepage and some of those problems that we did see in the basement. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you those today. We can only do the outside. But this grading right here, for sure, needs to be corrected. If we look here, also on the back of the house, we have a ledger board here. And I'm thinking that this was probably going to be a deck at one point, or a deck that they removed, maybe to put in the septic system or something like that. But, when we see things like this that are just odd or out of place, we do make a note of them for the client, because the client really wants to understand what this structure is or what it can be used for. So in this case, the client's not really wanting to make a deck or a low deck back here. And there's also no access to the deck. So he's just going to remove that ledger board and these posts right here. But it's odd that they left that. And a lot of times with a renovated home or flip house, we'll see these, odd things like this. But that should simply just be removed. Here also at the back of the home, and I don't know if you could see it, but these two kitchen windows have broken seals, and we see the condensation and discoloration inside the window here. And that's an indication that the window's lost its thermal seal. Not a big deal, but this condensation is always going to be present and visible. You'll never have a clear window, and the thermal integrity of the window is no longer there. So this is basically two replacement windows at the back of the home. We're going to recommend the client replace those windows to restore the thermal integrity of these windows at the back of the house. This is the left side area of the home too, but we have a nice natural grade here. But if we look close to the foundation wall, right, we have this flat or neutral grade. So we want to use the natural ground around the house that is sloping away from the home, but it's just not sloped enough away from right here along this foundation wall. So that's something we're for sure going to report on. We always want to make sure that our water gets directed away from the foundation walls of the house. These are basement window wells, and they're vulnerable because water is going to collect inside the well. People may disagree with me, but I like those bubble covers. I think they're purposeful, and I think they help prevent water from collecting inside these vulnerable areas here. So we always want to make sure that we cover our window wells just to prevent water from collecting inside here. If this was a newer home, we might have a drain system in here, but it's an old house and we don't have that. I also like to incorporate some gravel inside here, the window well, to incorporate inside the dirt to allow for more aeration of the soil so we can enhance the drainage in there as well. When we have a tree over a house like this gives us access for squirrels or other wildlife to enter onto the roof and possibly gain access to our attic. So we always write this up. We always want to make sure that we do not have trees that are close to the home or overhanging, just so we don't get wildlife on the roof and then they can actually make their way into the home. So we want all trees really cut back to prevent that issue. So we have this little bit of a living room bump out here on the house, and we have this foundation wall here. Looks good from here, but if we kind of pull back the siding, right, we need to pull back the siding is loose. And if we look under here, we can see that our sill plate is actually not bearing at all on our foundation wall. So that's a problem. This has to be properly blocked because our sill plate has to be actually resting or bearing properly on the foundation, or else we're going to get a sloped floor. And you know what we have inside? We have a sloped floor. So if I was able to take you inside this house, we would see a sloped or negative floor inside this bump out here that's sloping towards us here, and it's sloping obviously towards the area where there's nothing supporting the floor or the sill plate here. So that for sure has to be corrected, and the floor in here is very springy, caused by this issue. This is a minor thing, but we see that somebody has ran over the downspout extension and crushed it. I do call things out like this, even though they're smaller, because we don't want to have water collecting at this left rear corner of the foundation. So these downspouts should discharge about 5 feet away and obviously be in good condition. If you look outside this home here, every single electrical light fixture outside this house is missing bulbs. So this is something that's so simple to do. I'm not able to test them, obviously, because they're missing bulbs. But if you're selling a house, why not have the bulbs installed? This way the home inspector can test them, and the person buying the home understands that they're working. Here, as a home inspector, I can just say that I couldn't test them because there's no bulbs, and that you guys, the buyer of the home, should install the bulbs and then test these light fixtures to make sure that they're properly operational. But if you're selling a home, simple stuff like this, just put the bulbs in. Now, I understand that they just put a septic system in the back of this house. That's what that is, right? So this is a new septic system. But the grading over here has a lot of low areas where water can collect. It's very muddy back here. So a couple things that we're going to have the client do is regrade this so water gets directed away and we don't have water retention in any of these low areas. I also want to recommend that we install a lawn back here. That'll help with drainage also and help really prevent a lot of muddy conditions that we're going to see during heavy rain in this backyard. As home inspectors, we're here also to call out any unsafe conditions. And we see that this electrical right here is not secure. This is on a tree in a backyard, and it's just hanging loose off the tree. There is power to it actually, and we need a cover on it, and we just need this really to be safe. So I'm going to recommend that we actually have this removed or installed properly on a post. Like if you need it here, why not install a 4x4 post that's safe, 3 feet above the ground, install your electrical conduit and receptacle and properly secure it to that post, rather than have this thing just all loose in the backyard like this. If you look back here, and I'm on the right side of this house looking at the roof ridge, and I don't know if you can see it, but if you can see, that ridge is up and down. It's not straight anymore. So we have a couple of sags in that roof ridge, which is a structural concern. I'm not really sure what is going on yet. I'll enter the attic space to try to figure that out. But if you can notice it right here, right, a ridge, which is at the very top of the roof, is got this sagging. And then look at that. After the left side of the chimney, we dip way down. Home wasn't constructed like that. So that's a structural concern that's going to have to be addressed. I'm just not really sure what caused it. If I had to guess, I would say that the light framing, due to the age of the home, has pulled out of that ridge. So in other words, our ridge beam or ridge board is probably no longer attached to its opposite rafter. And typically we'll see this problem and we'll see that issue in the attic space. So this is a structural concern here. The next thing we're going to look at is our roof, and this is a dimensional asphalt roof with a life expectancy of about 20 to 25 years. And I put a ladder up before, and I understand that this roof is older. It's brittle. It kind of breaks apart when I touch it. And I always like to touch a roof because it gives me an idea of its age. I'm not one of these guys that likes to, just take pictures from a distance. I really like to touch and feel a roof. I think it's important. So in any event, this roof is older and it really should be replaced. So we tell our client to budget for replacement soon on the roof, and it's just not me who wants it replaced soon. It may also be the insurance company. So I've said this multiple times also, it's just not that you accept a roof that's older. Your insurance company may be very conservative and may ask you to also replace the roof on the home. So be aware, just because you're accepting of an older roof and you buy a home with an older roof, it doesn't mean that your insurance company is going to be okay with that. Something small here, but we have an exterior dryer vent cover that's just open. There is no louver cover, so we want to install a louver cover here just so we don't get wildlife in there and obstructing our dryer vent pipe. And that can, we can have animals die in there and bad stuff can happen. You can also have, if this is a gas dryer, carbon monoxide enter the home if it cannot vent properly. So this is something that really should be corrected. We want to see a nice louver cover on the exterior dryer vent. I like to have chimneys on the outside of the home that are cement coated or parge coated. So a parge coating is like a stucco. It's a thin coating of cement on the outside of the masonry. And that, to me, is like the skin of the wall. And that's the first line of defense for any problems. So I like to see a skim or parge coating on this chimney. It's probably going to be fine without it, but it is something that I do notate. If you guys notice, we have a basement window well here, and that's just an odd, non-conventional configuration. We'll talk about that later. But there are no other basement windows, and I know for a fact that there is a space under the back of this house here that we can't get into as home inspectors, right? So that's what we call or refer to an inaccessible crawl space. And this might actually be the entrance here, but I'm not going to be able to open that for sure. It's a heavy slab of cement. So if I can't get into a space as a home inspector, I can't report on that space. So I can't tell you how important it is to have all areas under your home properly inspected. So as home inspectors, we want to get in all areas under the house. And if we can't get in there, we have to report those areas as not accessible. And if there's problems in there, I'm not going to know about it. And you, the client, are not going to know about it. So it's crucially important to understand what areas exist under the home and to make all non-accessible areas fully accessible before home inspection day. So this area under the house, and it's the majority of the home, can be properly inspected. Because if you don't inspect under here, or you don't have your home inspector you make access for him or her, this is creating a lot of open-ended risks for you, the buyer, because we have no idea what's going on back here. So the client had a tank sweep today, and that's a sweep of the property for underground oil tanks. And the technician flagged this area right here at the corner of the home as being an area that needs to be further investigated because he hit something large and metallic in this area, and that's why he flagged it. So it's always important, if you don't know that there's no underground oil tanks on the property, to do a proper tank sweep. Make sure that tank sweep company does that as a business, and they do it all the time. So you want somebody with the right insurance to do this kind of work, and also with the right experience, because it's both an art and a science, and it's not easy to understand when that metal detector goes off, what is an oil tank, a large oil tank underground, and what is just a simple piece of metal setting that off. You have to really have the skill to be able to identify the difference, and it's really not easy to do. So that's why we recommend that you hire somebody with the right skills to do that. We have companies that we can definitely recommend to do that. Not really a home inspector's domain, although some of us think that we can do it. I would think otherwise about hiring a home inspector who says that they can adequately inspect the ground around your house for underground oil tanks. Please watch out for that. So we have a shed in the backyard of this property, and I'm a mentoring inspector. Sometimes I have people who are training to be home inspectors who have a desire to enter the career. And I often get the question, should we inspect a shed? So technically you don't have to inspect a shed as a home inspector, but you know what? I'm here already. I'm doing the job for the client, and maybe it takes me 10 minutes or so to walk around the shed, to open the door, to look inside, to check the roof, right? My client deserves that, right? I mean, it's part of the house. It's staying with the home. To me, it's a built-in object, so why wouldn't I look at it? So the answer is technically home inspectors in New Jersey don't have to look at sheds, but you know what? It's a really good idea, and I do look at them. I think it's important. I probably don't have to tell you, but this window well orientation is wrong. It should be installed this way here, where this rounded edge is kind of facing me, and then we put a cover on it to prevent water from getting in there. This is kind of negating the whole process. Water is going to be able to still enter in there. Wind-driven rain is still going to be enter in there. So I don't really understand what they were thinking about, but this is actually secure, you know, to the exterior siding of the home. I don't really like this. I'm going to recommend a proper orientation of the window well. It's just odd that it's here. This is actually the well, and they're using it as a cover. So why not just put a simple bubble cover here? Maybe they had this left or from another job or something, and they said it's a good idea, let's put it over here. But I wouldn't recommend this. I would just want a simple bubble cover to actually prevent the water from getting into that vulnerable area.